The most important work of your life is the work you do within your soul. This is Home Improvement for the Soul.
Hello and welcome to Home Improvement for the Soul. I'm Maddie Cheers, and as promised, I am back with my sister, parenting expert, amazing parent, amazing gammon, grandma, Celia Kibler, founder of Pumped Up Parenting, co-founder with me of Fun Fit Family Fitness, and also a wonderful author of a wonderful book called Raising Happy Toddlers, bestseller, award winner of the Mom's Choice Award. So, Celia, we were going to continue our discussion on different ideas when it comes to after Christmas. Now we're looking at after Christmas, when all these gifts have been received. And one of the things I wanted to bring up was a tradition that I learned about. I mentioned Tom Porter last week, and the Haudenosaunee, the Iroquois people, and how in the old days, they didn't give birthday gifts. On your birthday, you were supposed to give a gift. It was really your birth month back then, but you were supposed to give a gift to your grandmas and grandpas who were your teachers. And the idea was to show gratitude for the fact that they had taught you how to survive for the last year of your life. So your birthday was actually a time to give thanks, to give back. And that when they did have a celebration for you, and this runs throughout several different cultures worldwide, there's and even the Boy Scouts adopted this idea from Native America, that you earn your knife. So you earn a knife by showing your grandparents respect, responsibility. Obviously, you have to have some skills, but you don't get the knife until you've shown respect and responsibility. And then there is a big celebration for you. And because now you're moving up. It's like in our world, graduating high school. But the idea of earning a gift, it's something we've gotten far, far away from. And I think that both this idea of giving thanks to everyone and anyone for a child, because a child is dependent on people, and giving them an awareness of that. But as you always say, focusing on the positive aspects of that is a good teaching, as we are now in the post-Christmas, post-holiday mode, post-gift receiving mode. And I do think the idea of earning certain things through your actions, not just the idea of earning it because I cleaned my room, I did all my chores and now I get my allowance, but the idea that as you're showing others respect and responsibility, as you're showing compassion, like we talked about last week, that counts for you. That is a positive thing. And that gets mentioned at these ceremonies when people speak of you. And I think that's a beautiful thing. So, Celia, anything you'd like to add to that?
Well, you spoke about responsibilities, and that is a really important thing right now. So your children have received all these gifts, and often we forget about a normal day because they're so overexcited with all these gifts they've gotten. They're tearing through them day after the holidays. They're all sugared up from all the sweets and treats that they've consumed. And they are, for the most part, out of control. Mm-hmm. And you are frustrated, and everybody is kind of in disarray, filled up with a lot of stress and chaos. And we forget to talk kindly to each other. We start yelling. Things are not going correctly. Kids aren't listening. No one's cooperating. What do we do? So the important thing to remember is the holiday is over, and probably your family, whoever was here, has left, and now it's you and your kids. It is important to maintain what gives them comfort. And what gives them comfort is schedules and routines.
Mm.
What helps them to regulate their emotions and their life and not feel like they're completely in chaos is schedules and routines and responsibilities.
Yep.
You mentioned allowance that they get tied to responsibilities. I personally don't think you should tie allowance to responsibilities. The responsibilities of the home are everyone's responsibility because you're part of that community.
Right.
Child's first community is their family, and you have a responsibility towards that. And children do not learn responsibility if not given responsibility.
Right.
They don't learn to be responsible humans.
Right.
And that is what we're doing. We're raising adults, not children.
Right.
And so you want to keep them on task. You want to slow down all the excitement, be like, okay, guys, we're getting back to our schedule. Plus, they may have school soon. So if every day is a whirlwind, how will they get back to their school schedules? You need to get back on track with a daily schedule, include their limits and boundaries. They can't just have screen time for 6 hours a day. Oh, they got a new video game. Well, that's great. But you know what, guys? Screen time is from 3:30 to 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
Right.
And
exactly.
that's it. Even after the holidays. Because screen time itself makes your children out of control.
Yep.
And stressed out.
Yep.
And so you really have to bring back normal, your normal day. And that actually creates the most comfort for your kids. When kids don't have schedules and routines, if you don't have schedules and routines in place, your children will always be more chaotic.
Right.
Because they're just running amok and doing whatever they want to do. And the stress level, the noise level, the chaos level in your home is out of control.
That's right. And that's why boundaries are so important. I mean, there have been many studies about the importance of giving your children boundaries, because if you don't do that for them when they are young, they don't know how to set it for themselves. So their relationships with other people, either friends or, boyfriends, girlfriends, spouses, partners, whatever it is, their romantic relationships, their love relationships might not be that great for them because they can't set their own boundaries. Those of us that know about that, I mean, what makes a relationship great has to do with a balance, but it also has to do with, understanding the boundaries that we had growing up. And then it allows us to say, well, no, I'm drawing a line here. That person's not allowed in my life. No, this is where we call it quits, either as a friend or as a lover or whatever is that person is going to be, because if we don't know how to set our own boundaries, how to say yes or no, then we are at risk. Many studies on that.
Yes. And, and that comes to saying no to your children, not allowing them to always get their way. People always ask me, does love spoil a child? No. Love and compassion and empathy and snuggling and singing and having fun with your child will never spoil a child, no matter what their age is. The only thing that spoils a child is giving into their every whim.
Yep.
Allowing them to have everything they want when they want it, that second, that moment. They throw a tantrum and you give in.
Right.
That's what spoils a child.
And I think, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I think very often what people don't think about is the positive schedule. Throw in, sure, there's going to be homework to be done or the dishes to be put in the dishwasher or whatever. There's going to be the chore list, but also within that schedule, there can be family movie night. It's, Harper's night to pick the movie. It's Brooks's night. It's Mommy's night. It's Daddy's night. It's Gammon's night. There can be all kinds of fun things that fit into that schedule where you sit down and you ask the kids. I love this. Now, you know, I used to work with the severely mentally ill, and we probably had a lot in common, but I used to run a social recreation program with them, and I loved it. It was one of the best learning experiences of my life, even though it was very challenging and very heartbreaking often. But one of the things that I did with them and was that we would sit down every month. We would all get together. We'd have coffee. We'd have donuts. I know people aren't going to like donuts, but I asked them what they wanted, and they wanted coffee and donuts. So we had coffee and donuts, and we would just discuss, well, what do we want to put on the schedule for this month? What do we want to do this Friday? What do we want to do this Saturday? We played cards every Tuesday. That was like a thing. That was a very regular thing that happened. And then, but then for the rest of the month, everybody got to suggest, can we do this? Can we do that? Because we had Fridays and Saturdays open to travel so that everybody could get into the activity that they wanted to, go the place that they wanted to go. And then, we discovered a lot of things and wonderful things, and sometimes not so wonderful. Some things we repeated, some things were like, okay, we're not doing that thing again. We're done with that one. So I think, though, that that's a great thing to do with your kids, like schedule a monthly meeting just to decide what's the fun stuff we're going to do next month. I just think that would work beautifully, and maybe not coffee for the kids, maybe not even donuts for the kids, but could be something fun, maybe pizza. Maybe we do it around pizza every first of the month.
Well, yes. And actually, I teach all of my clients to have weekly family meetings to get on the same page and absolutely go over your schedules, go over what's going on, brainstorm new ideas. That should be done every week at a regular time that you pick. And I give them an agenda specific to their meeting. So it's not just kind of a haphazard kind of thing. But it is important to incorporate fun. It's supposed to be fun.
Yep.
Why
Yep.
I always end everything in my podcast and every live broadcast I do with laughter. It is the best medicine.
Yep.
It really is.
Yep.
And if you're spending all day with your children, you're yelling at them, they always feel like they're doing things wrong. There is no respectful communication going back and forth. You're role modeling negative relationship behavior between you and your partner and your spouse. If you are doing all of that, then your child will grow up thinking they're the bad kid.
Yeah.
Why? Because they'll grow up thinking there's nothing I do right.
Right.
Nobody's noticing the positive. Nobody's noticing the good I do.
Right.
And your children, I'm sorry, do a lot more good than not so good.
Yeah. That's
if you
very
go
true.
through the day, there is a lot of positive they do than negative, but yet parents always address the negative. And the thing that you show attention to will always grow.
Right. And that's that falls into the whole idea of wintertime, in the traditional cultures that celebrate winter solstice, or the traditional cultures where winter is huge, one of the biggest celebrations that there is, it is the time to go inside. It is the time when, for those of us that have winter, that you are to take that inner journey. And that's very important. I think if you find yourself telling your children things that are not positive, acting a particular way with your own children that is going to make them feel bad, you have to ask yourself, why am I doing this? And then you have to go on your own inner journey. You have to take this winter time when you've got lots of dark and quiet and stillness. And I think finding a way to make that inner journey to it's the time, winter solstice is the time of the return of the light. That's why it's so celebrated universally through everywhere in the world that has winter, because we know the days get shorter, shorter, shorter. And then here, December 21st, it's the return of the light. That's a wonderful concept. But the return of the light has to happen inside of you. So if you find yourself treating your children in a way you don't want to, or you find yourself unable to focus on the positive, you make that inner journey and figure out, well, where did I learn that from? Because you probably did learn it from your own parents or someone in your life that made you feel less than, that made you feel you were always doing something wrong. So maybe you need to start with not just looking at listing all the things your kid did wonderfully in that day, but I would suggest list all the great things you did in a day, and start there and see how, as with all parents and grandparents and children and teachers, anybody who works with teachers, our behavior towards them is a reflection of our inner behavior, and they reflect back to us how we are making them feel. And we probably ended up feeling exactly that way. So I think that's a really important list, and it can be a very quiet activity. Give yourself credit, too.
Absolutely.
Because the more you can focus on your own positive qualities, the more you see it in others, just like something you said earlier. If we are our thoughts, we know that. So if we can continue to focus on the positive things of our children, of ourselves, we can build a better family, a better community, and ultimately a better world.
Exactly. And end those generational cycles of dysfunction and abuse.
Yes.
And don't just, you have the important element of appreciation and of noticing the positive is to not just notice, but to actually tell the person, whether it's you, whether it's your partner, whether it's your child, that you noticed.
Yep.
People go, oh, yeah, they were so great. I'll talk to my clients, and I start every client call with their wins.
Right.
And they'll be like, oh, yeah, they were great. I did this and this and this, and my child did this and this and this. And I'm like, did you tell them? Now, my clients have been with me for a while. They do, because they know that they have to tell them. But new clients will be like, well, no, I don't think I did. You have to let them know you noticed. You have to be specific, not just say good job.
Yeah.
Because good job is general. Good job what? Good job helping me with the dishes. Thank you so much for sitting down reading to your brother.
Right.
Those kind of things.
Every time you say thank you, every time you show appreciation, every time you notice, for kids and adults, it's like renewing the soul. It really is. The Hawaiians, I mentioned John Stokes last week of the Tracking Project, and he spends a lot of time with Native Hawaiian people. And he said that they have a saying. They say that every human being is born with a bowl of light. And what happens is, throughout the course of the day, people throw stones in your bowl, trying to cover up your light. And what you have to do every night is you have to dump out the rocks, dump out the stones, so the light shines again. And I love that idea. I know that it's a wonderful idea. If you notice your child is sad, if you notice something's going on, ask yourself, are you the one throwing stones in the bowl? Or do I have to find out who's throwing stones in my kid's bowl? Is he being bullied? Is she feeling like she's not keeping up with the rest of the class? What's going on here? And I love that image. I think what's so lovely about the bowl of light image is to tell a child that you have a bowl of light inside of you. It's just beautiful for their imagination. And then to tell the whole story of there will be people during the day that are going to try and put out your light. And really, they, if you go to what some people say, the whole society at large, because society at large wants you to conform to certain things. Sometimes they're trying to put out your light too. So if you can get a child young to understand that this is sort of a thing that we human beings do, but that you always have that bowl of light inside of you, and that mommy or daddy is going to sit down with you if you're feeling sad, and let's figure out how those stones got in your bowl and then tip it over. And I know John talks about how his kids would actually like have an imaginary bowl in their hands if they had had a bad day, and they would dump it out before they went to bed after they had talked to him or his wife, or it's just I just love that whole image, and I think it's a great way to make us aware of what's really going on with our kids, because like you pointed out in your list, you have to understand their feelings. You can't just understand their feelings without spending time with them. You've really got to make that apart. And I know parents are so busy, and many of them have 2 jobs, and it's very, very hard. But I mean, I think that I know from some of the people you work with, that's a lot of what you work out is, how do I fit in this time, this very, very, very important time to sit with my child and replenish that bowl of light.
Right. Attention is attention to a child.
Yep.
And if they're being negative and they are getting attention being negative and doing something disruptive, they're going to keep doing it. So you need to give them attention that's positive.
Right.
Even if it's 10 minutes, you do not have to spend hours and hours and hours with a child. 10, 15 minutes is enough to let them connect with you. Put your phones down, just you and your child do something together.
Right.
And then if you need to go back to work, you work at home or you have a phone call to make, then you go back. And then try to connect with them again later in the day. Make those times, be intentional with those times. And I'll give you another great thing while we're talking about thank you. Here's another great way to give positive expectations to your kids that involve the words thank you. Because parents, we're always reminding kids, say your son has to take out the trash when they get home from school. And you're like, don't forget, you have to take out the trash when you get home from school. Well, here's what that does. That sends them a direct message that you don't believe in them. And that they have to be reminded. And it is 100% negative. Wow. Now try this technique. It's the morning time. You're going to school. You're walking them to the bus stop, or you're driving to school, or walking to school, whatever that process is. And you say, hey, honey, thank you so much for taking out the trash when you get home. I really appreciate it.
Right.
What does that do? That sets up a positive expectation. And that tells your child, I believe in you.
Right.
I know you're going to do it, so I'm thanking you. Now, an older child might say, well, guys, you're thanking me, and I haven't even done it yet. And which you can reply, but I know you will, and I may not be there to thank you. So I just want to thank you ahead of time. Yep. Now, they've been thanked for something. Now they're going to live up to that expectation because the appreciation came first.
Right. And I think that's very important in kind communication. You know, you know me, I mean, I am a huge, as are you, advocate of free speech. I don't think you can have freedom at all, or creativity, or the use of your imagination unless people have free speech, because without free speech, there's no free thought. So but that doesn't mean that when you are communicating with somebody you have a difference with, that you have to communicate disrespectfully. It doesn't mean that you have to make yourself better than they are. That's ego talk. So it's hard sometimes for adults when they are talking to children, and I've seen this many times in the groups that I do in schools. It's hard sometimes for adults to communicate kindly when they're trying to rally a group of children, you know? But I have seen some amazingly brilliant teachers and learned some amazingly brilliant things about talking to, I mean, imagine yourself. Well, you and I can imagine ourselves because we do it every day. But I mean, parents out there, imagine yourself with 25 of your son or daughter, right? And they're all different and they all have different expectations. And this one human being that is responsible for their education and largely without help. When I talked last week about how the grandparents were responsible for educating the young Native people, if grandparents are educating and you're in your family community, your family clan, you've got, for every 25 kids, you could have 10, 20 grandparents working with them, but here in our schools, we have one. We have one and sometimes teachers' aides if you've got some special needs kids in the class, but mostly one person with a lot of kids. And when you watch these very brilliant teachers that keep control, one of the things I've always noticed, I don't mean control in a bad way, I mean a lack of chaos, right? One of the things I have always noticed about them is they are calm and they are respectful, even when they have to correct a child. I was in a school yesterday where there was a child who was just being tremendously disrespectful during the presentation. She didn't yell at her student in front of them. She walked up to them. She tapped him on the shoulder. She whispered something in his ear. She asked him to come off to the side. They went out of the auditorium. And I don't know what she said to him exactly, but I do know that they came back in, he sat, and he was quiet. So I think that, and that obviously is a learned behavior on the part of the adult. And then what does that say to the child? Not humiliating them, not yelling at them in front of other people, not pulling them out. I just love that. And, I see that all the time. And, of course, teachers are educated to do that. And but we as anybody who works with kids, anybody who's a parent, we need to practice. We need to practice those skills. And the best way to learn those skills is for somebody to model them. I really honestly think everything that I know about teaching, I learned from Mrs. Weinstein in second grade, like modeling her kindness, modeling the patience she had. And then over all these 40 some odd years of teaching kids, working with teachers, working with parents, a lot of it comes from, oh, that was great. I'm going to do that now. That solves that problem for me. I didn't know how to do that. So there is a point as a parent where you really have to embrace, or a teacher, embrace humility.
Well, and here's the important thing. We all are born without regulation, without emotional regulation. We have to learn it over the 25 years it takes to have a fully developed brain.
Right.
If you are screaming and yelling at your kids and you are hitting them and you are out of control, guess what? You are having a tantrum. And if you get upset because your 2, 4, 6-year-old has tantrums, you are modeling that behavior. If you scream and yell because you're disappointed in something your child did, your child is going to learn the same. And when they get disappointed, they're going to do the same thing you did. Mm-hmm. If you want a calmer child, you have to be a calmer parent.
Right.
And you have to respect and understand that they are little. They are not adults. They can't respond to you like an adult. It's not just difficult, it's impossible.
Right.
And if you think they're going to respond to you like an adult, you need to think again. And when we talked about role modeling before, you are their ultimate role model, and everything you do, good and not so good, you're giving your child permission to do. Think about that for a little bit.
I know. So, Seal, rather than end with a poem from my book today, what I wanted to ask you, we're going into a new year, and parents, all of us have our New Year's resolutions, right? And a lot of the resolutions are going to be for parents, especially about how they're working with their kids and things like that. So I thought maybe of all of our discussions over the last couple of weeks, where would you tell parents to start if they're really feeling challenged? What do you think are a couple of good resolutions for parents to make that are not so difficult to follow through on?
Well, first of all, if you're really feeling challenged, depending on what it is, if, I work very hard to teach parents to be calm and respectful to children because respect teaches respect.
Right.
But whatever you're challenged with, and if it's yelling, use that as an example, then it is time to sit down with your children, with your family, and discuss that you would like to make 2024 a year where we're not screaming and yelling. I want to work hard not to do this. And I would love if you guys would keep me accountable while I keep you accountable. Let's help each other not to yell. And let's brainstorm some ideas of how we can do this. Now, I do have a 21-day to stop yelling program.
Oh.
That can really kickstart you. If you just go to quitYelling.com, 21 days. If you stay consistent and do what I ask you to do each day, you will stop yelling. But it should be a family thing. The thing that parents forget is that kids get defiant when they have no control.
Mm.
And the normal family, the parents are in charge, and the children are told what to do, when to do, how to do it all the time.
Yeah.
And no one asks their opinions. If you have teenagers that don't want to hang around with you, and you say, why don't you hang around with your family? You know what they'll tell you? They'll tell you, well, because nobody cares what I have to say. Nobody asks my opinion. I feel like I'm invisible.
Yeah.
So ask yourself, do you feel like you're invisible? Do your kids feel like you're invisible? And the best way to end someone feeling invisible is to start noticing them.
Yep.
Be a noticer.
Yep.
Appreciate the good they do. Appreciate the good you do. Ask their opinion. Sit down and discuss things. Something's going wrong. Sit down with your child and go, you know what? I've had a hard time getting you off your screens. What do you think a good consequence would be? Let them come up with the consequence. First of all, they're much harder on themselves.
Yes.
Than
Oh
you will
my
always
gosh.
be.
Oh my gosh.
And if they create the consequence, they have some skin in the game.
Yeah.
And they know, oh, if I don't get off my screens, I told mom and dad they can do this. They can take my screen away for a week. Do I really want that?
Exactly.
Now there are ways to create good working teaching consequences. And I have a formula for that. But in the meantime, ask your child to create one. And if it's reasonable, I mean, if we have time, I can tell a real quick funny story.
Okay, tell a real quick funny story.
Okay, real quick, because I know we don't have time. But one of my
We have
clients,
time.
they asked
We'll
their
go over
daughter-
just for you. Go ahead.
Okay. They asked their daughter, who was 10, to create a consequence. And I always tell my parents, if it's reasonable and doable, then use their consequence, not yours. So they asked her, was something she's talking back. So they asked her what her consequence would be. And she said, now she's 10 years old, that she would stand outside at night for a half hour all by herself.
Oh my God.
And she couldn't come in. And I was like, oh my gosh, I hope you said no. Like, that sounds horrifying. And no, they did not put that into play. Thank goodness. They compromised on a different one. But you never know what they're going to say. But the thing is, you can also negotiate and create a reasonable consequence that they have formulated. The biggest thing you can start doing right now, and it is a habit, is start noticing the positive, Start telling your children you notice what they're doing right, and start involving your children in family conversation.
Yep. I couldn't agree with you more. It's just vitally important that we listen to each other.
Yeah.
That
Best
is
listeners are the best communicators.
right. It's the key to everything. Listening is the key to everything. The key to understanding, the key to compromise, the key to everybody feeling like they're treated fairly and respectfully. It's the key to love, too.
Right.
You want to show somebody respect, you want to show somebody you love them, quiet down and listen to them. Listen to what they have to say.
That's the good stuff. That's intimacy.
Yep. And then give them a big hug.
Yes, hugging. We love hugging.
We love hugging.
We love hugging.
We love hugging.
Good. Hugging's always a good thing.
Yes, it is. All right, Seal, thank you so much for joining me for this two-part series. I totally appreciate it. Again, you can just give your contact info real quick.
Okay, so you can go to pumpedupparenting.com and you can set up a free call with me at Talk with you know what? It's not free. But it's an SOS call. So if you struggle with something and you need it resolved now, you're like, oh my gosh, I've read so many things and I don't know what to do. I don't know what's the right thing. You can schedule an SOS call with me at talkwithcelia.com, talkwithcelia.com. So need help, get help. And let's really be intentional about soothing all the anger and rage that's going on in society from generations of this negative behavior. And let's turn these generations around and turn this world around.
Exactly. Couldn't agree with you more, as you know. So thank you, everybody. Thank you for listening. Again, I'm Maddie Cheers. Maddie Cheers, MADDICHEERS.com. If you want to comment, make show suggestions. I love show suggestions, topics, anything you want to know about. You can reach me at Maddie at MaddieCheers.com. You can reach me at Maddie at Women'sOneness.com. You can join the Facebook group, the Women's Oneness Project. And I hope to see you on our Zoom launch party on January 23rd for the Mandala Meditations. Thank you all again. I wish you a joyous, joyous week and a joyous, joyous new year, new soul, new everything. Thanks again. Have a wonderful rest of your holiday season. Bye-bye now.
Thank you for joining us for Home Improvement for the Soul. If you'd like more information, please go to womensoneness.com or maddiecheers.com. That's womensoneness.com or maddiecheers.com. See you on the next episode.